In this session, we are going to discuss about average, which is one of the most important concepts from quantitative aptitude. Let us first understand the basic definition of average. Average is nothing but sum of all the elements by total number of elements. So sum of all the elements by total number of elements will give us the average. Element here can be any type of variable for the given set of people or given set of entities. And from the same formula, we can also find out the sum of the elements as sum of the elements should be equal to average value into the total number of elements. Let us take an example to understand the definition of average. Let us say there are 4 persons A, B, C and D, and each one of them has got some amount. For example, let's say A has got 70 rupees, B has got 60 rupees, C has got 30 rupees and D has got 40 rupees. Now what will be the average sum of money with these 4 persons? As per the definition, we know that average is nothing but sum of all the elements divided by total number of elements. Now element in this case is nothing but the amount with each of these persons. So I can say that the average amount should be equal to sum of all the elements divided by the number of elements. So sum of all the elements will be 70 plus 60 plus 30 plus 40 divided by the number of elements are 4. Now by simplifying this, we get 70 plus 60 is 130 plus 30 is 160 plus 40 is 200. So 200 divided by 4 will be equal to 50. So we can say that the average amount with each of these 4 persons will be rupees 50. Understand, element need not be rupees only. It can be any type of variable. For example, instead of saying that A, B, C, D have got 70 rupees, 60 rupees and so on, we can assume that these are the weights of these 4 persons. That is, weight of A is 70 kgs, weight of B is 60 kgs, C's weight is 30 kgs and D's weight is 40 kgs. So the average weight of these 4 persons will be 50 kgs. Or for that matter, we can say that these are the ages of the 4 persons. That is, A's age is 70 years, B's age is 60 years, C's age is 30 years and D's age is 40 years. So in that case, the average age of the 4 persons will be 50 years. So understand that average can be calculated for any type of variable, but all the variables should be of same type. For example, all the 4 variables here should be in kgs, or all the 4 variables should be in years. We cannot calculate the average for 70 kgs, 60 kgs, 30 kgs and 40 years. That doesn't give us any idea. So average should be done only for similar type of variables. Let us now understand the second point here, that is sum of all the elements should be equal to average into total number of elements. Let's say the question says the average sum of money with 4 persons is 50 rupees and there are 4 persons. So what will be the sum of amount with all the 4 persons together? As we know that the sum of elements should be equal to average into total number of elements. Average here is 50 and the number of elements are 4. So we can say that the sum of all these values should be equal to 50 into 4, which is equal to 200. So that means the total amount with all the 4 persons together should be rupees 200. So friends, this is how we can find out the average for the given set of elements, and also we can find out the sum of the elements when the average and the total number of elements is given to us. Before we take up any other example, let us understand the significance of average. That is, what is the importance of average? What do we get to know when we calculate the average? Understand, the basic idea behind calculating average is equal distribution. That is, average is nothing but an equal distribution of the total value. For example, here we know that there are 4 persons who have got 70, 60, 30 and 40 rupees respectively. So if I collect the amount from each one of them, that is, we take 70 rupees from A, 60 rupees from B, 30 from C and 40 rupees from D. So the total amount which I have will be equal to 200 rupees. Now this 200 rupees, when it is divided equally among all the 4 persons, each person will get 50 rupees. So that is the idea behind calculating average. It is an equal distribution of the total amount. Similarly, let us assume these are the weights of the 4 persons. So the total weight of all the 4 persons together will be 200 kgs. And this 200 kgs of weight, when divided equally among all the 4 persons, each person will be sharing a weight of 50 kgs. So remember that average is nothing but an equal distribution of all the given elements. Let us now understand what happens when a fifth person tries to join this group. For example, we already have 4 persons with the given values and we know that their average is 50 rupees. Let's say now a person E who has got 50 rupees wants to join the group. What will be the average for all these 5 persons together? Now to find out the average of all the 5 persons, we need not do the same calculation again. That is 70 plus 60 plus 30 plus 40 plus 50 by 5. That calculation is not required. As we have already learned that average is an equal distribution, we know that the equal share for each of these 4 persons is 50 rupees. And now a fifth person, E, wants to join the group who has got 50 rupees. So as you can see, there is no change in the distribution of equal shares, as E also has got 50 rupees, which is the distribution of all the 4 persons. So we can say that the average remains same when the person has got the value which is equal to the old average. So we need not waste our time in finding out the new average again. Remember, the average may increase or decrease depending on whether E has got more than 50 rupees or less than 50 rupees. For example, if E has got more than 50 rupees and the average of 4 persons is 50, then the new average will be more than 50. And similarly, if E has got less than 50 rupees, then the overall average of all these 5 persons together will be less than 50. Let us take an example to understand that. Let's say E has got 60 rupees. That is more than the average value of the 4 persons. Now, how to find out the new average? Again, as I've already mentioned, we need not calculate the overall average again by using the definition. Here, the simple point which needs to be understood is E has got how much extra. For example, we know that the equal distribution for the 4 persons is 50 rupees. Now if you can see here, E has got 60 rupees. That means he has got 10 rupees extra when compared to the equal distribution of the 4 persons. Now this extra 10 rupees which E has got should again be equally divided among all the 5 persons. So when 10 rupees is divided among 5 persons, each person will get 2 rupees. And since already each one of them has got rupees 50 and adding 2 rupees to that, the new average will be 52 rupees. So we can say that the average amount with all the 5 persons together will be rupees 52. So as you can see here, we need not calculate the average again to find out the new average. Simply by looking at the new value and the average of the remaining persons, we can find out the new average. Let us now understand what happens when E has got less than 50 rupees. Let's assume E has got rupees 30 and the average with the 4 persons is rupees 50. So in this case, if you try to observe, E has got only 30 rupees, whereas the equal distribution for the 4 persons was rupees 50. So if you observe, E has got 20 rupees less. So instead of saying 20 rupees less, we can say that E has got minus 20 rupees extra. Now again, as we know that average is an equal distribution, whatever extra amount we have has to be divided equally among all the given persons. Now as E has got minus 20 extra, this minus 20 should be divided equally among all the 5 persons. So minus 20, when it is divided among 5 persons, each person will get minus 4 rupees. That means we have to give minus 4 rupees to each of the 5 persons. They already have 50 rupees each. So if we try to give the minus 4 to each of these persons, the average will become 46 rupees. Because they already have got 50 rupees each, and by giving minus 4, it becomes 46. So we can say that the new average will be equal to 46 rupees. So friends, as you have seen here, by understanding the concept of equal distribution, it will be very easy to find out the average of the whole group when a new person joins, simply by taking the difference of the amount with the old average. So remember that the definition of average is sum of all the elements by total number of elements, but the basic concept behind calculating average is equal distribution of the total amount. Let us now discuss one more example based on the basic idea of average. The question here is average temperature of first 3 days is 27 degrees and next 3 days is 29 degrees. if the average of the whole week is 28.5 degrees, what is the temperature of the last day? So here, as we can see, the average temperature of first 3 days, the next 3 days, and the average of the whole week is given to us. And from that, we are supposed to find out the average temperature of the last day. Let us try to solve this question by balancing the sum of the temperatures of the whole week. Now, as we know that the average temperature of the whole week is 28.5, we can say that the total temperature of all the days in the week should be 7 into 28.5. And this should be equal to the total of the first 3 days. That is nothing but average into number of days. 27 into 3 plus the total temperature of next 3 days. That is nothing but 29 into 3 plus the temperature of the last day. Let us take it as T. So by solving this equation, we can say that T should be equal to 7 into 28.5 minus 27 into 3 minus 29 into 3. On solving this, we get the answer as 31.5 degrees. So we can say that the temperature of the last day should be 31.5 degrees. So friends, as you can see in this example, the temperature of one of the days can be calculated simply by balancing the sum of all the temperatures on both the sides. Or we can say that the value of any of the elements from the given set of elements can be calculated simply by balancing the total of all the values on both the sides. Let us now understand the important concept of combined average or mixed average. The statement here is, if the average of a group of n1 elements is a1 and the average of another group of n2 elements is a2 and so on, then the average of all the groups taken together will be equal to n1a1 plus n2a2 and so on till the last product divided by n1 plus n2 plus n3 and so on. So the idea here is, whenever two different groups are given to us, the average for both the groups together can be directly taken as n1a1 plus n2a2 divided by n1 plus n2. Let's say there is a group of n1 persons where the average age is a1 and there is another group of n2 persons where the average age is a2. So the combined average for both the groups together can be taken as n1a1 plus n2a2 divided by n1 plus n2. This happens because we know that sum of all the elements in the first group should be equal to number of elements into the average. So n1 into a1. Similarly, the sum of the second group should be equal to n2 into a2. And the combined average for both the groups together should be equal to sum of the first group plus sum of the second group divided by number of elements in first group, that is n1, plus number of elements in second group, that is n2. So this can be taken as n1a1 plus n2a2 divided by n1 plus n2. So friends, remember that whenever we are supposed to find out the combined average of two or more than two groups together, we can simply take it as n1a1 plus n2a2 and so on divided by n1 plus n2 plus n3 and so on, where n is nothing but the number of elements in each group and a denotes the average of the group. Let us now take an example based on the concept of combined average that we have just discussed. The question here is, in a class there are 32 boys and 28 girls. The average age of the boys is 14 years and the average age of the girls is 13 years. What will be the average age of the whole class? So as you can see here, the average age of the boys is given to us, that is 14 years, and the average age of the girls is also mentioned, that is 13 years. And we are supposed to find out the average age of the whole class. We have just learned that whenever the average of two different groups are given to us, we can find out the combined average as n1a1 plus n2a2 divided by n1 plus n2, where n1 is the number of persons in the first group, n2 is the number of persons in the second group, and a1 and a2 are the averages of the two groups respectively. Now in the given question as well, we find two groups. One is a group of 32 boys and the other is a group of 28 girls. For these 32 boys, the average is 14, and for the 28 girls, the average is 13 years. The average age of the whole class will be nothing but the combined average of these two groups. So that can be taken as the number of people in the first group, that is 32, into the average, that is 14 years, plus the number of persons in the second group, 28, into the average 13 divided by n1 plus n2, that is 32 plus 28, which is equal to 32 into 14 plus 28 into 13 divided by 60, that is 32 plus 28. Now by taking 4 common here, we get 4 into 8 as 32, 4 into 7 as 28, and 4 into 15 as 60. So 8 into 14 will be 112, 7 into 13 will be 91. So 112 plus 91 divided by 15, which will be equal to 203 divided by 15. So by solving this, we get the answer as 13.53. So we can say that the average age of the whole class will be 13.53 years. So this is how we can use the concept of combined average in solving these type of questions. Remember, there can be sometimes more than 2 groups as well. The concept remains same. N1A1 plus N2A2 plus N3A3 divided by N1 plus N2 plus N3, and so on. Let us now understand the third model from average, where we are supposed to find out the average of a smaller group out of a given larger group. The point here is, if the average of a group of n elements is A and the average of a group of n1 elements out of n elements is A1, then the average of the remaining elements, that is n minus n1 elements, will be n into A minus n1A1 divided by n minus n1. To understand this point, let us assume there are n students in a school, and out of these n students, n1 are boys. So it is obvious that the remaining students, that is n minus n1, should be girls. Now for these n students, let us assume the average age is A, and for n1 boys the average age is A1. So the average of the girls here can be calculated as total of all the students, that is n into A, minus the total of all the boys, n1 A1, divided by the number of students minus number of boys, so n minus n1. So this is how this point is useful in finding out the average of a second group when the average of the first group and the overall group is given to us. In some cases, the average of the whole group is given, and out of that the average of 2 smaller groups is also given, and we are supposed to find out the average of the third group. Even in that case, the same concept is applicable, that is n into A, that is the total of the whole group, minus n1A1, the total of the first group, minus n2A2, the total of the second group, divided by n minus n1 minus n2. So this is how we can always find out the average of the left out group when the average of the remaining groups is given to us and the average of the whole group is also given. Let us now take an example based on this concept. The given question here is, the average age of a class of 65 boys is 14 years. The average of 20 of them is 14 years, and that of another 15 is 12 years. So what will be the average age of the remaining boys? So as you can see here, the average age of the whole class of 65 boys is given, that is 14 years. And then the average of a group of 20 of them is given, which is 14 years. And another group of 15 boys is 12 years. And we are supposed to find out the average age of the remaining boys. We have just learned that when the average age of a whole class is given and the average of smaller groups of the class is given to us, then we can find out the average of the remaining students as NA minus N1A1 minus N2A2 divided by N minus N1 minus N2, where N is the total number of students, N1 and N2 are the number of students in the other groups, and A1 and A2 are the averages of these groups respectively. So by using this point, the answer for this question can be obtained as N into A, that is total number of students 65 into their average 14, minus the other group here is of 20 boys where the average is 14 years. So total of these 20 boys can be taken as 20 into 14, minus the third group is 15 boys where the average is 12 years. So their total can be taken as 15 into 12 divided by total number of students 65 minus number of students in the first group 20 and number of students in the second group, that is 15. So this can be simplified as 65 into 14 minus 20 into 14. By taking 14 common, we get 65 minus 20, which is 45 into 14 minus 15 into 12 divided by 65 minus 20 is 45. 45 minus 15 is 30. Again, taking 15 common, we get 3 times, 1 time and 2 times. So 3 into 14 is 42 minus 12 divided by 2, which is equal to 30 by 2, which comes out to be 15. So we can say that the average age of the remaining boys will be 15 years. So this is how we can solve such type of questions where the average of the whole group and the average of smaller groups out of it is given to us. And we are supposed to find out the average of the remaining group of people. Hi guys, welcome to TalentSprint. I am Rohit Agarwal. In this session today, we are going to look at the master concept that makes solving the questions from averages really very easy. So at the end of this video, you'll walk away with a lot more confidence in answering the questions from averages. Now, what is the actual definition of average? Sum of all the values by the number of values, right? The formula that we use for solving questions based on averages is sum of all the values divided by the number of values, which is the conventional method. But if you look at the concept, we can say that average is nothing but an equal distribution, right? It is the equal distribution of the total amount or the total value among the given persons. For example, let's say the average score of 5 batsmen is 80 runs, right? Average score of 5 batsmen is 80. Now, irrespective of their actual scores, we can simply understand that each of the batsmen here has scored 80 runs. Now, in the actual case, some of them might have scored more than 80. There may be a batsman who has scored a 0, and there may be, one of them who has scored exactly 80. But then, for our understanding, to be simpler, just assume that each person has scored 80. So that's equal distribution, right? Average is simply an equal distribution. And with this idea of equal distribution, solving questions from this topic becomes really very simple. Let's look at an example. The question says average age of 12 students of a class is 15 years. When the teacher joins the group, average increases by 2 years. What is the teacher's age? And this is one of the most popular models from averages that is asked in many competitive exams, right? What does the question say? Average age of 12 students of a class is 15 years. Now, going by our logic of equal distribution, it simply means that the 12 students, each of the 12 students here is 15 years old. Now, their actual ages may be different, right? But for our understanding to be easy, each student here is 15 years old. So 12 students, each person's age is 15 years. Now, when the teacher joins this group, average increases by 2 years. The actual average was 15. Now, the average has increased by 2 years. That means the new average is 15 plus 2, that is 17 years. And this 17 years is the average for how many persons? It is for 12 plus 3, 12 plus 1, 13 persons, right? There are 12 students and now teacher has also joined the group. So, total 13 persons. So, for 13 persons, the average is 17 years. What does it mean? Each of the persons here is 17 years old. Equal distribution, right? It is an equal distribution. Very well, we know that teacher's age will be much more than 17, right? It cannot be 17 years, but going by our understanding of equal distribution, we can say all the 13 persons here are 17 years old. Now, we need to calculate the teacher's age. Look at it. As per equal distribution, teacher is 17 years old. But because the teacher has joined the group, each person's age here has increased by 2 years. Earlier, all the 12 students were 15 years old, but now they are 17 years old. That means there has been an increment of 2 years in each of their ages. Why did this happen? Because of the teacher, right? This goes to the teacher. 2 years contribution to each of the students is by the teacher. So we can simply say that the teacher's age is 17 years, which the teacher already has, plus 2 years given to all the 12 students, right? So 2 into 12 is 24, 24 plus 17 will be the teacher's age. So we can say the teacher's age here is equal to 17, which the teacher actually possesses, plus 2 years given to the 12 students. So 2 into 12. So 2 into 12 is 24, 24 plus 17 is 41. So we can say teacher's age here is 41 years. So this is how we can use this concept of equal distribution in answering questions from averages. And you'll find that even in other types of questions from average, we can use this method of equal distribution. Let us now take the fifth model from averages, where the question is based on discrepancy in one of the values while finding out the average. Let us take an example. The question here is average temperature for a week is noted as 32 degrees. But later it was realized that Friday's temperature reading was taken as 30 degrees instead of 16 degrees. So what is the correct average temperature for the week? So as you can see here, the average temperature of a week was calculated as 32 degrees. But later it was discovered that one of the values was taken as 30, whereas the actual value was 16. So from this data, we are supposed to find out what should be the correct average temperature for the given week. Now very clearly, the average which has been calculated, that is 32 degrees centigrade, is the wrong average, right? So we can say that the wrong average which has been calculated is equal to 32 degrees centigrade. Now from this we can say that the wrong total of all the values should be equal to 32 into 7, as there are 7 days in a week. So 32 into 7 will give you the total of all the temperatures for that week, and 32 into 7 is equal to 224. Now from this wrong total, let us first find out what should be the correct total. The correct total of all the temperatures, or the correct sum of all the temperatures, should be equal to the wrong total, that is 224. From this we should subtract the value 30 and add the value 16, because we know that 30 is a part of 224. So we should subtract this 30 and add the correct value, that is nothing but 16. So 224 minus 30 plus 16 will be equal to 210. That means the correct total for the whole week is equal to 210. And from this correct total, we can now say that the correct average should be equal to nothing but the correct total divided by the number of elements. So correct total is 210 divided by, we have 7 days in a week, so that is 30 degrees centigrade. So we can say that the correct average of the week should be equal to 30 degrees. But friends, solving the question in this way will take a lot of time, as it involves 3 to 4 steps. So let us understand how can we solve this question without writing these steps in just one single step. From the given question, we know that Friday's temperature reading was taken as 30 degrees instead of 16 degrees. So very clearly, Friday's actual temperature is 16, but it was taken as 30 degrees. So the difference between these two values is 14 degrees. So that means while calculating the average, 14 degrees was added extra in the total. So that is the reason we have got a wrong average. And this wrong average is higher than the correct average. So to find out the correct average, we need to decrease the overall temperature by 14 degrees. So we can say that the correct average should be equal to the wrong average, that is 32 degrees minus something. Why we are subtracting something here? Because we know that the correct average should be lesser than the wrong average. So 32 minus, the difference is to be subtracted. But very clearly we have discussed that whenever we add or subtract something, it should be equally divided among all the elements. So this 14 degrees should be divided equally among all the 7 days, and then the reading is to be subtracted. So we can say that the correct average should be 32 minus 14 divided by 7, as this 14 degrees is to be equally distributed among all the 7 days. So 14 by 7 is equal to 2. So we can say that the correct average is 32 minus 2, which is equals to 30 degrees centigrade. So the correct average will be equal to wrong average minus the difference of the values divided by the number of elements. Similarly, suppose one of the readings is taken lesser than the actual value. In that case, the wrong average which is calculated is lesser than the correct average. So to find out the correct average, we need to add the difference. So in that case, we should take plus instead of minus. Let us now take another example based on the model that we have just discussed. The question here is, the average weight of a group of 50 girls was calculated as 58 kgs. It was later discovered that the weight of one of the girls was read as 45 kg, whereas her actual weight was 65 kg. So what is the actual average of the group? So as you can see here, there are total 50 girls in the group and their average was calculated as 58 kgs. But later it was found that for one of the girls whose weight was 65 kg, the reading was taken as 45. That means while finding out the average, weight of one of the girls was taken as 45 instead of 65. So we can see that the difference of 45 and 65 here is 20 kgs. Now as you can see here, the difference between the actual weight and the wrong weight is 20 kgs. And while calculating the average, the weight of the girl was taken as 45 instead of 65. That means her weight was reduced. So that is the reason we have got a reduced average. The actual average should be more than the wrong average. So we can say that the correct average should be more than the wrong average, that is 58. And since it is to be more, we should add something. What should we add here? We should add these 20 kgs. But before adding 20 kgs to the average, it should be distributed equally among all the persons in the group. Why? Because average is always an equal distribution calculation. So this 20 should be divided among all the 50 girls in the group. So we can say that the correct average will be 58 plus 20 by 50 will be 0.4. So that is equal to 58.4 kgs. So friends, this is how you can solve these type of questions, simply by taking the wrong average plus the difference divided by number of elements. We should take plus when the correct average should be more, and we should take minus when the correct average should be less. So avoid writing all the steps and simply get the answer by taking the wrong average plus or minus the difference divided by the number of elements. Let us now take the sixth model from average, which is based on finding out the average of consecutive numbers. Let us first understand what do we mean by consecutive numbers. Consecutive numbers are nothing but the numbers which come one after the other. For example, 16, 17, 18 are consecutive numbers, or for that matter 29, 30, 31, 32 and so on. These are all consecutive numbers. And these numbers in general can be represented as x, x plus 1, x plus 2 and so on. For example, if the first number is x, then the second consecutive number will be x plus 1, the third one will be x plus 2 and so on. Let's take any value in place of x. Let's say x is equal to 12. So the next number will be 12 plus 1, that is 13, 12 plus 2, 14 and so on. So this is how we get a set of consecutive numbers. Similarly, we have something called as consecutive even numbers. Let us understand what does it mean by consecutive even numbers. Now, consecutive even numbers are nothing but the numbers which are even and come one after the other in succession. For example, 2, 4, 6, 8 and so on are consecutive even numbers. And these numbers can be represented as x, x plus 2, x plus 4 and so on. That is, if the first even number is x, then the next one will be x plus 2. The third one will be x plus 4 and so on. Let us take an example. Let us assume x is equal to 6. So the next number will be 6 plus 2, that is 8. Then we have 6 plus 4, 10 and so on. And the last point here is consecutive odd numbers. What are consecutive odd numbers? Consecutive odd numbers are nothing but the numbers which are odd in nature and come one after the other in a sequence. For example, 1, 3, 5, 7 and so on. These are consecutive odd numbers. And these numbers can also be represented as x, x plus 2, x plus 4 and so on. Remember, most of the students have a misconception that consecutive odd numbers should be taken as x, x plus 1, x plus 3 and so on, which is absolutely wrong. Whether the numbers are consecutive odd or consecutive even, they should be represented as x, x plus 2, x plus 4 and so on. The idea here is between any two consecutive odd or any two consecutive even numbers, the difference is 2, and that difference 2 is reflected here. Again plus 2 and so on. So that is the reason we should always take it as x, x plus 2, x plus 4 and so on. Let us now take an example of consecutive odd numbers. Let us assume x is an odd number. For example, x is 13. So the next number would be 13 plus 2, 15, 13 plus 4, 17 and so on. So friends, this is what is meant by consecutive numbers. We have consecutive numbers like 1, 2, 3 or 12, 13, 14 and so on. Consecutive even numbers like 6, 8, 10 and so on. And consecutive odd numbers like 13, 15, 17 and so on. Now the point here is, how do we get the average of consecutive numbers? For example, let's take the consecutive numbers 12, 13 and 14. Now to find out the average of three consecutive numbers, we need not add all of them and divide by 3. That is 12 plus 13, 25 plus 14, 39 by 3, which is equals to 13. This calculation is not required. Instead, we can directly say that average of consecutive numbers is always the middle number. For example, in this case, the three numbers which we had were 12, 13 and 14. So without doing this calculation, I can directly say that average should be middle number, that is 13. Similarly, suppose we have consecutive odd numbers like 97, 98 and 99. The average of these three numbers should always be the middle number since they are consecutive in nature. So for consecutive numbers, always the average can be taken as the middle number. Similarly, in case of consecutive even and consecutive odd numbers, the average can be taken as the middle number. For example, if we have to find out the average of 6, 8 and 10, I can directly say that the average will be equal to 8 because that is the middle number out of the given consecutive even numbers. And the average for 13, 15 and 17 should be 15. Similarly, let's say we have consecutive odd numbers as 61, 63, 65, 67 and 69. Now to find out the average of these 5 consecutive numbers, we need not take the sum divided by 5. As we have already discussed, for consecutive numbers, average should always be the middle number. And here, out of the 5 numbers, the middle number is 65. So we can directly say that the average is 65. So remember that for any type of consecutive numbers, whether they are normal consecutive numbers or consecutive even numbers or consecutive odd numbers, average will always be the middle number. Now the second point which we need to understand here is how to find out the average of even number of consecutive numbers. For example, if you observe, in all the cases that we have discussed so far, we had odd number of numbers. Here we have 3 numbers, here we have 3 numbers, here we have 5 numbers and so on. Whenever there are odd number of numbers, we have a definite middle number and it is easy for us to find out the average. But in case if we have even number of consecutive numbers, then there is not one middle number. So how to find out the average in such a case? Let us take an example. For example, let's say the 4 consecutive numbers are 97, 98, 99 and 100. Now how to find out the average of these 4 numbers? As you can see here, we do not have one particular middle number. Instead, we have 2 numbers which forms the part of middle numbers, that is 98 and 99. So the average for these 4 consecutive numbers should be taken as the number which comes exactly in between 98 and 99. That is nothing but 98.5. So this is going to be the average for 97, 98, 99 and 100. Similarly, let us take this example 12, 13 and 14. For these 3 numbers, the average is 13. But in case if we include 11, then the average cannot be taken directly. Why? Because we do not have one middle number. So in this case, again the average should be taken as the average of 2 middle numbers, or the number which comes exactly between 12 and 13, which is nothing but 12.5. Likewise, in case of consecutive even numbers, we have 6, 8 and 10. So the average was 8, that is the middle number. But if we have 6, 8, 10 and 12, then the average cannot be taken as 8. In this case, the average will be the average of 2 middle numbers. That is the number which comes between 8 and 10. And that number is nothing but 9. So we can say that average of 6, 8, 10 and 12 should be 9. And the same concept is applicable in case of consecutive odd numbers as well. For example, let's say we have another number here, that is 71. Now these 6 numbers form a series of consecutive odd numbers. That is 61, 63, 65, 67 and 69 and 71 forms a series of consecutive odd numbers. Now here, to find out the average, we do not have one particular middle number. So the average should be taken as the average of 2 middle numbers, or the number which comes exactly between the two middle numbers. We very clearly know that the number which comes between 65 and 67 is 66. So I can say that the average of these consecutive odd numbers is 66. So the point here is, for any type of consecutive numbers, average will always be the middle number. And if there is no one middle number, we should take the average of two middle numbers. Let us now take an example based on consecutive numbers that we have just discussed. The question here is, sum of three consecutive even numbers is 44 more than the average of these numbers. What will be the highest of these numbers? So as he says, we have three consecutive even numbers. We know that consecutive even numbers should be taken as x, x plus 2 and x plus 4. And the question here is, sum of these three consecutive numbers is 44 more than the average of these numbers. So sum of these three consecutive numbers will be x plus 2 plus x plus 4. And this sum is 44 more than the average of these numbers. We know that for three consecutive numbers, the average should be the middle number. And the middle number here is nothing but x plus 2. So we can say that the sum of these three numbers should be x plus 2 plus 44, as it is 44 more than the average. So very clearly we have taken the given statement, that is, sum of these three numbers is 44 more than the average. Now by simplifying this equation, we get x plus 2 gets cancelled and we have 2x plus 4 equals to 44, from which we can say x is equal to 20. And the question is, what will be the highest of these numbers? Very clearly, out of these three consecutive numbers, the highest number is x plus 4. So we are supposed to find out what is x plus 4. We know that x is equal to 20. So we can say that the highest number will be equal to x plus 4, that is 24. So the answer for this question will be 24. So remember that for consecutive numbers, always the average should be taken as middle number. And that helps us in solving the question faster. Let us now discuss another example based on consecutive numbers. The question here is, if the average of 11 consecutive even numbers is 98, what is the highest number? So here the average for 11 consecutive even numbers is given and we are supposed to find out the highest number. To solve this question, we need not take all the numbers as x, x plus 2, x plus 4 and so on and waste our time. Instead of that, we can simply understand that average for consecutive even numbers should always be the middle number. So with the help of this point, let us find out what can be the highest number. If there are 11 consecutive numbers, for example, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J and K, very clearly the middle number will be the sixth number, since we have 5 numbers in the beginning and 5 numbers after the sixth number. And this sixth number should be the average. So very clearly the sixth number from this 11 consecutive numbers is 98. And the highest number should be the last number, that is nothing but the 11th number. Now to find out the 11th number, we can simply proceed from the 6th number, that is nothing but 98. We know that each of these pair of consecutive numbers will have a difference of 2. And since we have 5 numbers after the 6th number, we can say that the total difference will be 2 into 5, that is 10. So we can say that the 11th number or the highest number will be equal to 98, that is the 6th number, plus 5 into 2, which is equal to 108. 98 is the 6th number and 5 into 2 is nothing but the number of numbers which we have after 6th number, and 2 is the difference in between each two consecutive numbers. So we can directly say that the highest number will be 108 without writing any steps. Let us now take another example based on consecutive even numbers. The question here is, A, B, C and D are 4 consecutive even numbers respectively and their average is 65. What is the product of A and D? So as given in the question, we have 4 consecutive even numbers A, B, C and D, and the average of these 4 numbers is 65. Now from the points that we have discussed, we know very well that average of consecutive numbers should always be the middle number. And here, as you can see, we do not have any single middle number. So the average should be taken as the average of the two middle numbers, or the number which comes exactly between the two middle numbers. As given in the question, the average of these four numbers is 65. So very clearly, the number which comes exactly between B and C is 65. That means the number B should be the even number which comes immediately before 65, that is 64, and C should be 66. So simply by observation we can say that B and C are 64 and 66 respectively. And similarly, A should be 62 and D should be 68, as these all form four consecutive even numbers. Now the question is, what is the product of A and D? We know that A is 62 and D is 68. So the product of A and D should be equal to 62 into 68. So the answer for this question should be 4216. That is nothing but the product of 62 and 68. Let us now look at one of the interesting questions from consecutive numbers. The question here is, the sum of 5 consecutive odd numbers is 575. So what will be the sum of the next set of 5 consecutive odd numbers? So as given, we have a set of 5 consecutive odd numbers whose sum is 575. Now as discussed, 5 consecutive odd numbers can be taken as x, x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6 and x plus 8. And the sum of these 5 numbers is given as 575. So we can say that x plus 2 plus x plus 4 plus x plus 6 plus x plus 8 is equal to 575. Now by solving this equation we get 5x plus 2 plus 4 is 6 plus 6 12 plus 8 20 should be equal to 575. That means 5x is equal to 555, and from this x will be equal to 111. If x is 111, the next number should be x plus 2, that is 113, and then the third number should be 115, fourth number should be x plus 6, that is 117, and the fifth consecutive number should be x plus 8, that is equal to 119. So these are the 5 consecutive numbers whose sum is 575. And we are supposed to find out the sum of next set of 5 consecutive odd numbers. So the next set of consecutive numbers that we have after these 5 numbers will be 121, 123, 125, 127 and 129. And the sum of these numbers will be equal to 625. So we can say that the sum of next set of 5 consecutive odd numbers is 625. But friends, this is the conventional way of solving the problem, and we cannot afford to spend so much time for solving such a silly question. If you are smart, you will get the answer for the same question without writing anything on the paper. Let us take some 5 consecutive odd numbers. For example, let us take 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. See, these are the 5 consecutive odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. And the sum of these numbers be x. Let this sum be x. So as given in the question, the sum of 5 consecutive numbers is 575. We are supposed to find out the sum of next set of 5 consecutive odd numbers. Now if you observe, the next set of consecutive odd numbers here would be 11, 13, 15, 17 and 19. And the point to be noted here is the difference between the first number in the first set and the first number in the second set is 10. Similarly, the difference between the second numbers of both the sets is again 10. The third number is also 10. Fourth and fifth numbers as well is 10. So as you can see, each number in the second set will be 10 places away from each number in the first set respectively. Therefore, the difference between each of these pairs is going to be 10. And the total difference will obviously be 10 into 5, that is 50. So instead of writing all these steps, I can simply say that the sum of next set of numbers should be x plus 50. So therefore, here the answer should be 575 plus 50, that is equal to 625. And that is what we have got by following the conventional method. But that is a very lengthy procedure, and here we get the answer within a few seconds without writing any step. So understand that the sum of the next set of 5 consecutive odd numbers will be 50 more than the given sum. So that can directly be taken as 575 plus 50, which is equal to 625. So friends, these are the various types of questions that we get from average. Practice well on these questions, as these are also useful while solving data interpretation. See you in the next session. Thank you.